Imagine a daring teenager who, from his bedroom, brought the mightiest intelligence agencies to their knees. Welcome to Crime Ciphers, where today we unravel the electrifying saga of Justin, a young prodigy hacking the unhackable, humiliating the CIA, and shaking governments worldwide. From gamer to cyber vigilante, his relentless quest challenged the powerful and redefined the internet battlefield. Will justice catch the digital phantom? Stay curious, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. Because the darkest cybercrime stories start here. Let's move to our first story. And this one begins with a security camera that captured a woman's last steps, though the official records claim she never returned home at all. What we're about to uncover will chill you to the bone. This is the story of a tech heiress who had it all: inheritance, family, a golden future. But in one night, she vanished, leaving behind cryptic clues and lies that took years to untangle. As one agent on the case later said, "We thought this was just a missing person. We had no idea we were walking into Silicon Valley's darkest secret." This begins in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley's gleaming heart, where fortunes are made overnight and empires built from code. Amid all this shine, a single secret can destroy everything. Alex was born to luxury in 1995, but earned every bit of respect she ever got. Her father, James, came to America from Taiwan in '75, working days as a Stanford researcher and nights in a food truck, barely feeding his family in their one-bedroom apartment. Everything changed in 1985, when James's semiconductor breakthrough launched a tech company now worth billions. Alex grew up knowing privilege and pressure. She was taught that money doesn't make you special. Hard work and integrity do. Alex took those words to heart. She graduated top of her class at Stanford in computer science and business. She was fluent in 4 languages, played piano with precision, and spent weekends volunteering at shelters. Her friends called her magnetic. She filled every room. At 24, she was already being prepared to run the family company. She lived in a $4 million penthouse, drove a white electric car, and was engaged to Marcus, a venture capitalist she'd met at Stanford. Their wedding was set for the summer, the invite list packed with the who's who of tech. But as these stories so often show us, perfection masks the deepest cracks. It started quietly in late 2020. Always on time, Alex began missing key meetings. Her assistant, Sarah, noticed how she looked out the window for hours, her face freezing after certain phone calls. Tension at family dinners built each night. David, her 26-year-old brother, was the rebel. He dropped out, drifted, and rarely lifted a finger for the business, which infuriated James, who called him ungrateful. Then came a bombshell. At Thanksgiving, James announced he was retiring. As expected, he handed the company to Alex, leaving David with a trust fund but no power. Witnesses said David stormed from the room, shouting, "You always pick the golden child." Let's see how perfect she really is. Alex tried to hide her stress, but those close saw the warning signs. She lost 10 pounds, her spark diminished, her posture drooped. She began receiving strange parcels at her apartment, whisking them away before Marcus could ask. She said it was family business, he remembered later. She never used to hide things from me. I knew something was very wrong. On Valentine's Day, Alex and Marcus had dinner plans at a top restaurant. She left her apartment just after 6:30 p.m., wearing a red dress and her grandmother's diamond necklace. Cameras in the garage captured her getting into her white car at 6:42. She never arrived at the restaurant. By 7:15, Marcus was calling. By 8 o'clock, worried, he went to her home. The concierge said she'd left. Marcus called her family, who began searching. At 11:47, law enforcement was notified. The police's initial reaction was routine. Since Alex was an adult missing less than 24 hours, they weren't alarmed. One officer even suggested it was probably a relationship spat. But Marcus insisted, "Alex is the most reliable person I've known." The first real break came early. At 2:30 a.m., her white car was found abandoned in a diner parking lot in San Jose, 45 minutes from Palo Alto. It was unlocked, and inside was her purse, cash, credit cards. Everything except Alex. Her phone had been smashed, and on the seat was a handwritten note. The truth was too much to bear. "I'm sorry." "Oh." Detective Maria had handled missing persons for years, but this one was different. "Wealthy people don't just walk away and leave everything behind," she later said. "And that diamond? She never would have left it." The FBI's behavioral analysis unit got involved, treating it as a possible homicide. They noted the distress in the note, the way the pen shook, the uneven pressure. Possibly Alex was forced to write it. Maria's team retraced Alex's week. They uncovered secret searches about cybersecurity firms and encrypted calls to unknown numbers. Her laptop history had been wiped with tools only professionals use. More shocking, Alex had silently liquidated $2 million in investments, quietly transferring the money to cryptocurrency. The family was floored. Alex never moved large sums without a word. They searched her childhood room and found a manila envelope beneath the floorboards. Printed emails, photos, bank documents. The documents revealed the company was being robbed from within. 1,000 small cuts bleeding away secrets to foreign competitors. Chen Technologies' government contracts were at risk. Then came another twist. David was living the high life, despite claiming to only use his trust fund. Bank records showed he'd spent millions in 12 months, gambling, luxury, and a growing drug habit. Pressed by debts and criminal creditors, David had started stealing. Using his privileged access, he photographed classified files and sold them through intermediaries. Alex had figured it out first. Days before vanishing, the siblings argued over email. David wrote, "You have no idea what these people can do. Keep quiet or regret it." Alex stood her ground. "I won't let you destroy everything Dad built. If you're not honest by Valentine's, I'm going to authorities myself." It was a deadline that cost her everything. 3 months went by. Marcus, angry with law enforcement, hired private investigators. They recovered something missed. Late-night security footage from a San Jose gas station, time-stamped the night Alex vanished. In it, 2 people appear. Alex, clearly shaken, and a young man in a baseball cap, leading her to a dark SUV. Freeze-frame analysis matched the man to David. Put on the spot, David's alibi crumbled. He'd said he was home, but his phone was traced to San Jose that night. Under questioning, David confessed. The truth was darker than anyone had guessed. He'd lured Alex out, promising finally to admit his crimes. Instead, he described how the espionage ring he worked for threatened them both. Silence Alex, or see the entire family destroyed. Terrified into a corner, David said he had no choice. What happened after, he claimed not to remember. Prosecutors didn't believe him. Half a year later, police descended on David's Malibu home. He was charged with kidnapping, conspiracy, and murder. Simultaneous raids around the world dismantled the industrial espionage network. As news broke, Silicon Valley reeled. The company James had spent a lifetime building was sold. The family trust dissolved. James, Broken, withdrew from public life. Linda turned her grief to activism, founding the Alexandra Foundation to help victims of white-collar crime. "My daughter died for money," she said. "We have to prevent this pain for others." Marcus moved to Montana, leaving the tech world behind. He rarely speaks of Alex, except to say, "She tried to do what was right." The police never found Alex's remains, despite months of searches. David still claims not to know what became of her. The authorities, certain otherwise, continue to search. In the end, Alex's brilliance, integrity, and every good deed became the very reasons she was targeted. She was betrayed not by strangers, but by the person she trusted most. This story is a warning. Even with all our technology, cameras, code, and untold riches, human nature, greed, and betrayal are beyond any algorithm's reach. When all is said and done, the price of silence and family secrets can be paid in the greatest loss of all. In the eternal shadow of Silicon Valley, her memory lingers, a question that comes back each time another high-profile life ends in scandal. If someone that careful could be snatched from the heart of the world's most high-tech city, what secrets are waiting in the night for all of us? This has been another chapter in America's hidden stories. The crimes that shake families, destroy empires, and change our lives forever. Let's move to our second story. And this one begins with a missing person report filed for someone who was sitting in a police station at that exact moment. What I'm about to tell you will shake your understanding of justice itself. This is the story of a small-town police chief who thought he could bury the truth along with his victims. But when a rookie detective stumbled upon evidence that didn't add up, it unraveled a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of law enforcement. As one FBI agent later told me, "We thought we were investigating a simple missing person case. We had no idea we were about to expose the most corrupt police department in American history." Springfield, Ohio, a town of just 8,000 people nestled in the heart of the Midwest, where everyone knows everyone and secrets are supposed to stay buried. This is quintessential small-town America, where Friday night football games draw the entire community and the local diner serves as the unofficial town hall. The crime rate was virtually zero, making it the perfect place to raise a family. Or so everyone thought. The Springfield Police Department consisted of just 12 officers led by Chief Robert Hayes, a man who'd served the community for over 25 years. To residents, Hayes was a pillar of integrity, a decorated veteran who'd returned from Vietnam and dedicated his life to keeping their streets safe. He lived modestly, drove the same pickup truck for 15 years, and never missed Sunday service at the Methodist Church. Parents pointed to him as an example for their children. "Be like Chief Hayes," they'd say. "Serve your community." But behind Hayes's badge and beneath his friendly smile lurked something far more sinister than anyone could imagine. The story begins with Jessica Martinez, a 19-year-old college student home for winter break in December 2018. Jessica was the pride of her family, the first to attend university, studying criminal justice with dreams of becoming a detective herself. She was beautiful, intelligent, and had that rare combination of street smarts and book learning that made her parents beam with pride. Jessica worked part-time at Murphy's grocery store, the town's only supermarket, saving money for her final semester. On December 15th, 2018, Jessica finished her shift at Murphy's and told her co-workers she was meeting someone important. "This could change everything," she whispered excitedly. "I can't tell you yet, but soon everyone will know." Those were the last words anyone heard from Jessica Martinez. When Jessica didn't come home that night, her mother Maria immediately grew worried. Jessica was responsible, She always called if she'd be late. By morning, Maria was frantic. She drove to Murphy's, called Jessica's friends, even checked the local hospital. Nothing. At 10:30 a.m. on December 16th, Maria walked into the Springfield Police Department to file a missing person report. The desk sergeant, Officer Frank Wilson, seemed oddly dismissive. "College kids disappear all the time," he said without looking up from his paperwork. "Probably went off with some boyfriend. She'll turn up." But Maria insisted something was wrong. Jessica would never vanish without word. Reluctantly, Wilson took the report, assigning it case number 2018-1247. What Maria didn't know was that at that exact moment Jessica filed her report. Jessica's body was lying in the basement of the police station itself. The case was assigned to Detective Sarah Chen, a 28-year-old rookie who joined the Springfield Police just 8 months earlier. Chen had moved from San Francisco, seeking a quieter life after burning out on big city crime. She was thorough, methodical, and unfortunately for Chief Hayes, she actually cared about doing her job properly. Chen began her investigation by interviewing Jessica's friends and family. Everyone described the same person: responsible, focused, never involved with drugs or dangerous people. Jessica's phone records showed her last call was to an unknown number at 9:47 p.m. on December 15th. The call lasted 37 seconds. When Chen tried to trace the number, she discovered it belonged to a burner phone that had been purchased with cash. Something felt wrong to Chen. In her experience, missing college students usually left some kind of digital trail, social media posts, credit card purchases, something. But Jessica had simply vanished. Chen requested permission to expand the investigation, but Chief Hayes repeatedly denied her requests. "We don't have the resources for a wild goose chase," he told her. "The girl probably ran off. Close the case." But Chen couldn't let it go. Working on her own time, she discovered that Jessica wasn't the first person to disappear in Springfield. Over the past 5 years, 4 other people had vanished. Marcus Thompson, a 31-year-old mechanic who'd been asking questions about drug dealing in town. Linda Foster, a 45-year-old librarian who discovered suspicious financial records at City Hall. Tommy Rodriguez, a 22-year-old who'd witnessed something he shouldn't have. And elderly Walter Kemp, who'd been complaining about police corruption to anyone who'd listen. All 5 disappearances had been investigated by Chief Hayes personally. All 5 cases had been closed as voluntary missing persons. And all 5 cases had one thing in common. Each victim had been asking questions about corruption in Springfield. Chen's breakthrough came by accident. While searching the basement storage room for old case files, she noticed a strange smell coming from behind a concrete wall that seemed newer than the rest of the building. The wall had been painted recently, unlike the rest of the musty basement. When she mentioned this to the maintenance worker, he looked confused. "I didn't paint no wall down there," he said. "Been meaning to, but ain't got around to it." That night, Chen returned to the station alone, using a sledgehammer from the maintenance closet. She broke through the concrete wall. What she found inside would haunt her forever: the decomposed remains of Jessica Martinez, still wearing her Murphy's grocery name tag. But Jessica wasn't alone. Hidden behind that basement wall were the bodies of all 5 missing persons, arranged in a makeshift tomb that had been carefully constructed to avoid detection. Each victim had been shot once in the back of the head, execution style. And scattered among the bodies, Chen found evidence that told the complete story. Photographs of drug deals, financial records showing embezzlement, and witness statements that had never been filed. Chief Hayes had been running Springfield like his personal criminal empire for over a decade. He'd been skimming money from the city budget, taking bribes from drug dealers, and eliminating anyone who threatened to expose him. The 5 victims hadn't disappeared. They'd been murdered by the very man sworn to protect them. Chen immediately called the FBI. Within hours, federal agents swarmed Springfield. They arrested Chief Hayes at his home, where they discovered over $800,000 in cash hidden in his walls, along with detailed records of his criminal activities. Hayes had kept meticulous notes, apparently planning to write a book about his exploits after retirement. Under interrogation, Hayes showed no remorse. "I kept this town safe for 25 years," he said coldly. "A few troublemakers had to be dealt with. That's the price of peace." When agents asked about Jessica specifically, Hayes smiled. Girl was smart, too smart. She'd figured out that evidence from old cases was disappearing. Called me that night thinking she was going to be a hero. Instead, she joined the others. The investigation revealed that Hayes had been systematically destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses, and covering up crimes for years. Several other officers were arrested as accomplices, though most claimed they'd been too afraid to speak up. The corruption ran so deep that the entire Springfield Police Department was disbanded and replaced with county sheriffs. Hayes was convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder, along with racketeering, embezzlement, and conspiracy charges. He was sentenced to death and currently sits on Ohio's death row, still maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. His trial revealed that he'd stolen over $2 million from the city and had been planning to fake his own death to escape justice. For the families of the victims, Hayes's conviction brought some closure, but could never restore what was lost. Jessica Martinez would have graduated with honors that spring. Marcus Thompson had been planning to propose to his girlfriend. Linda Foster was 3 months from retirement. Tommy Rodriguez was saving money to help his sick mother. Walter Kemp just wanted to see his grandchildren grow up in a safe town. Detective Chen was transferred to the FBI and now specializes in investigating police corruption. She still carries the weight of what she discovered that night in the basement. "The hardest part," she later said, "wasn't finding the bodies. It was realizing that every day I'd worked alongside a killer, never suspecting that the man who'd sworn to serve and protect was actually hunting the very people he was supposed to defend." The town of Springfield has never fully recovered. Property values plummeted, businesses closed, and many families moved away. The new police chief, brought in from Columbus, has worked tirelessly to rebuild trust, but shadows of the past linger. The old police station was demolished, and a memorial garden now stands in its place, bearing the names of Hayes's 5 victims. This case serves as a chilling reminder that evil can hide behind even the most trusted badges. In small-town America, we place our faith in those sworn to protect us. But when that trust is betrayed, when the guardian becomes the predator, the wounds cut deeper than any crime committed by strangers. Robert Hayes didn't just kill 5 innocent people. He murdered an entire community's faith in justice itself. And perhaps that was his greatest crime of all. The investigation continues, as authorities believe Hayes may have been responsible for other disappearances across Ohio. Somewhere in the darkness of corruption, other families may still be searching for answers that died with their loved ones in a basement tomb beneath the place they trusted most. Let's move to our 3rd story. And this one begins with a GPS route that led to death instead of home. In a world where ordering food or booking a ride takes seconds, we rarely stop to question the safety of these everyday conveniences. But for one Florida college student, what should have been a simple ride home became her final journey. This is a story about predators hiding behind legitimate services, about trust betrayed in the worst possible way, and about a family's fight to ensure no other parent endures their nightmare. As one detective told me, evil doesn't just lurk in dark alleys anymore. Sometimes it picks you up at your doorstep. Tampa, Florida, a vibrant metropolis where the University of South Florida pulses with the energy of over 50,000 students. This sun-soaked city has everything young people crave: beaches, nightlife, endless opportunities. It's a place where dreams take flight and futures are built. But beneath the palm trees and neon lights, danger can wear a friendly face and drive a clean car. Rose was everything a parent could hope for in a daughter. Born on October 3rd, 2001, in Jacksonville to two professors, she inherited their love of learning and their drive to make the world better. At 21, she was a senior at the University of Florida, double majoring in political science and criminal justice. Her dream was crystal clear: become a human rights lawyer and fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Rose wasn't just academically gifted, she was magnetic. As president of her sorority, Alpha Delta Pi, she organized charity drives that raised thousands for local shelters. She played violin in the university orchestra, volunteered at legal aid clinics, and somehow still found time to maintain a perfect GPA. Her professors called her exceptional. Her friends called her their anchor. Her parents called her their pride and joy. Standing 5 feet 4 inches with auburn hair and green eyes that sparkled when she laughed, Rose had that rare quality of making everyone around her feel important. She'd secured a summer internship with a prestigious Miami law firm, a position that typically went to graduates, not undergraduates. Her boyfriend John often joked that she was going to be arguing cases before the Supreme Court before she turned 30. Rose would just smile and say, "Why wait until 30? But perfect lives can shatter in an instant, and Rose's would be destroyed by the very technology that was supposed to keep her safe. May 12th, 2022. A Thursday night that started like any other. Rose and her sorority sisters had gathered at their favorite restaurant to celebrate the end of finals week. The semester was over, graduation was just around the corner, and life felt infinite with possibility. Around 11:30 p.m., while her friends wanted to hit another bar, Rose decided to call it a night. She had an early meeting with her internship supervisor the next morning. Standing outside Midtown Tampa, Rose pulled out her phone and opened the rideshare app she'd used dozens of times before. The pickup spot was well lit, busy with other students coming and going. She felt completely safe. At 11:47 p.m., she texted John, "Car's 3 minutes away. Sweet dreams, babe." It was the last message anyone would ever receive from Rose. John, who'd been studying for his own finals, decided to track Rose's route home through the app's family sharing feature, something they'd set up for safety. At first, everything looked normal. The car was heading toward Rose's apartment complex. But then, something changed. The route veered south, away from campus, toward areas John didn't recognize. He tried calling Rose. The phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. By 1 a.m., John was in full panic mode. He drove to Rose's apartment and found her roommate Julia wide awake, pacing the living room. "She never came home," Julia said, her voice tight with worry. "Rose always texts when she's 5 minutes away. Always." They spent the rest of the night driving the route Rose should have taken, calling her name, checking every parking lot and side street. Nothing. At dawn, they called the police. The initial response was frustratingly routine. Another college student who probably went home with someone and forgot to call. But John insisted this wasn't like Rose. He showed them the GPS data, the abrupt route change, the sudden communication blackout. Finally, the officers agreed to investigate. Detective Serenity had seen plenty of missing college students in her 15 years with Tampa PD. Most turned up hungover and embarrassed within 24 hours. But something about Rose's case felt different. The GPS data showed the car traveling to a remote area near the Hillsborough River, not exactly prime party territory. Security cameras from nearby businesses revealed a black SUV circling the pickup location 3 times before Rose got in. The breakthrough came when they contacted the rideshare company. The driver who'd accepted Rose's ride, Hudson, had called in sick to customer service at 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes after picking up Rose. He claimed his car had broken down and he'd had to cancel all remaining rides. But the GPS data told a different story. The car hadn't stopped moving until 1:23 a.m. when it reached a boat launch 30 miles from Tampa. Police found Hudson's SUV abandoned at his apartment complex, freshly washed but still reeking of bleach. Inside, despite the cleaning, luminol revealed massive bloodstains across the back seat. Hudson was nowhere to be found, but his neighbor mentioned seeing him loading something heavy into a different car around 3 a.m. The manhunt for Hudson lasted 4 days. He was finally spotted at a gas station in Ocala, trying to buy a burner phone with cash. When police moved in, he ran. The chase ended when Hudson crashed his stolen car into a retention pond. He survived, but barely. Under interrogation, Hudson initially claimed innocence, insisting he'd never seen Rose before. But the evidence was overwhelming. DNA analysis confirmed the blood in his SUV was Rose's. Her phone was found in his apartment, deliberately destroyed. Most damning of all, security footage from a convenience store showed Hudson purchasing zip ties, duct tape, and a tarp, all at 10:30 p.m., more than an hour before he'd even met Rose. The truth that emerged during Hudson's confession was more horrifying than anyone had imagined. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was premeditated hunting. Hudson had been using the rideshare platform for months, specifically targeting young women traveling alone late at night. He'd call in fake emergencies to cancel legitimate rides, then prey on confused passengers who mistakenly got into his vehicle instead. Rose wasn't his first victim. Police discovered evidence linking Hudson to 3 other disappearances across Florida. But she was the first whose disappearance had been immediately noticed, whose route had been tracked, whose family and friends had refused to give up. In a twisted way, Rose's organizational skills and the love of those around her had finally exposed a predator who'd been hunting for over a year. Hudson led police to where he'd disposed of Rose's body, a remote section of the Green Swamp, 60 miles from Tampa. The medical examiner confirmed she'd died from multiple stab wounds, but mercifully, the attack had been swift. She'd fought back hard enough to leave Hudson with defensive wounds he'd tried to hide with makeup during his days on the run. The trial began in January 2023. Hudson's defense team argued for mental illness, claiming their client suffered from severe personality disorders that diminished his responsibility. But Rose's family and the prosecutor weren't having it. The evidence showed clear premeditation. The fake equipment failures, the deliberate hunting pattern, the prepared materials. This was a calculating predator, not a sick man who needed help. John testified about Rose's character, her dreams, her excitement about graduation. She wanted to spend her life protecting people, he said through tears. Instead, she became a victim of the exact kind of evil she wanted to fight. Rose's parents spoke about their daughter's impact on others, how she'd made everyone around her better. Even hardened jurors wept. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury found Hudson guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, kidnapping, and fraud. Judge Lucas sentenced him to death, calling his crimes a calculated campaign of terror against innocent young women. Hudson showed no remorse, even smirking as the sentence was read. But Rose's story didn't end with Hudson's conviction. Her death sparked a movement that reached far beyond Florida. Her parents, Leo and Eliza, channeled their grief into action, founding Rose's Shield, a nonprofit dedicated to transportation safety advocacy. They worked with rideshare companies to implement new verification systems, mandatory photos for every ride, real-time license plate verification, and panic buttons that instantly alert emergency services. More importantly, they pushed for legislative change. In late 2023, Florida passed Rose's Law, requiring all rideshare vehicles to display illuminated signs with the driver's name and photo. The law also mandated background checks every 6 months, not just during initial hiring. 23 other states have since adopted similar legislation. The University of Florida created the Rose Memorial Scholarship for students pursuing justice-related careers. Her sorority established an annual service day in her honor. But perhaps the most fitting tribute came from an unexpected source. A young woman named Margaret, who'd been Hudson's first intended victim, but escaped when a police car happened to drive by. Margaret graduated law school in 2024 and now works as a prosecutor, specifically handling cases involving violence against women. For John, healing has been a longer journey. He transferred schools, unable to bear the memories that lurked around every campus corner. He now works for a cybersecurity firm that specializes in safety apps, designing technology that might have saved Rose. She always said technology should serve people, not hurt them, he explains. I'm trying to make that true. The rideshare company implemented new safety features following Rose's death, including mandatory selfie verification for drivers and GPS tracking that can't be disabled during active rides. While they've never admitted legal liability, they've quietly settled with dozens of families whose loved ones were harmed by fake drivers using their platform. Today, Rose's case is studied in criminology courses as an example of how modern technology can be weaponized by predators. But it's also taught as proof that communities can come together to create meaningful change from unthinkable tragedy. Her death exposed a vulnerability that countless young people faced every day. And her family's response has undoubtedly saved lives. The green swamp where Rose's body was found now hosts an annual memorial walk, with hundreds of participants wearing the orange and blue of her beloved Gators. A scholarship garden at her high school bears her name, reminding students that one person really can change the world, even after they're gone. As we navigate an increasingly connected world, Rose's story serves as both warning and inspiration. Evil will always find new ways to exploit our trust, but good people will always find ways to fight back. Her 19 months of post-graduation plans may have been stolen, but her impact continues to ripple outward, protecting strangers she'll never meet in places she'll never see. In the end, Rose got her wish to fight for justice, just not in the way anyone could have imagined. And somewhere in the digital safety features that now protect millions of riders, in the laws that make predators hunting harder, in the scholarships that educate the next generation of advocates, Rose's voice continues to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. Let's move to our fourth story. And this one begins with a maintenance worker who followed a trail of evidence only to discover one of the most significant criminal cases in university history. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about juvenile crime and justice. This is the story of an 18-year-old woman who became the youngest person on death row since America reinstated capital punishment. a case so shocking that seasoned detectives still struggle to understand the circumstances behind it. But this isn't just about a crime. It's about how childhood trauma, toxic relationships, and dangerous obsessions can create a perfect storm of violence. As one investigator told me years later, "I've seen a lot of cases in my career, but what happened in those Tennessee woods was something else entirely." Knoxville, Tennessee, a city nestled in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, home to the University of Tennessee and its 27,000 students. This is classic American college town territory, where football Saturdays bring the community together and students feel safe walking campus paths late into the night. The university's sprawling campus includes a small wooded area near the agricultural buildings that most students barely notice. A quiet spot with an abandoned steam plant that had been forgotten by time. It was here, on a cold January morning in 1995, that university maintenance workers began what should have been a routine trash collection. But as they walked deeper into the woods that morning, they had no idea they were about to stumble upon a scene that would haunt them forever. Around 7 a.m., the maintenance workers noticed something that made them stop. Dark stains on the ground, forming a faint trail leading into the underbrush. Their first thought was that some animal had been hit by a car and crawled here. But as they followed the trail, parting the grass with their maintenance tools, they discovered evidence of a serious crime. Before them lay the remains of a young woman. Her body showed signs of a prolonged attack, with multiple wounds from what appeared to be utility knives. At the center of her chest was a 5-pointed star that had been carved into her flesh. The victim's injuries were so severe that immediate identification was impossible. Trembling, the workers ran from the woods and called 911. The Knoxville Police Department and university security swarmed the scene within the hour. Even veteran investigators who'd worked cases for decades stood stunned at the level of violence. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a crime of passion. This was something carried out with methodical cruelty over an extended period. The victim had sustained numerous injuries, and evidence suggested the attack had lasted approximately 30 minutes. The first challenge was identification. With the victim's face damaged beyond recognition, police had to rely on other methods. A check of the university's Job Corps program revealed that 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer had failed to return to her dormitory the previous evening. Colleen was from Orange Park, Florida, a working-class student who joined the program because she couldn't afford traditional college. She was passionate about nursing and dreamed of building a career in healthcare. Dormitory logs showed that Colleen had left at 8 p.m. on January 12th with 3 other students: Krista Pike, Tadarrell Shipp, and Shadala Peterson. While the other 3 returned by 10:15 p.m., Colleen never made it back. When police questioned the trio, their stories began to unravel almost immediately. The breakthrough came when a campus security guard brought police a leather jacket that belonged to Krista Pike. Inside the pocket, wrapped in tissue, was evidence that forensic analysis would later confirm belonged to the victim, kept as some kind of trophy. But perhaps even more disturbing was what another student told investigators. That very morning, before news of the discovery had spread, Krista had bragged to classmates about her involvement in a serious crime. Pointing to brown stains on her shoes, she described in detail what had happened the night before. She showed no remorse, no fear, only satisfaction in what she'd done. The motive, when it emerged, was as troubling as the crime itself. Krista Pike, 18 years old and a practitioner of occult beliefs, had become obsessed with her boyfriend Tadarrell Shipp a 17-year-old who shared her dark interests. When Krista went home for the holidays, leaving Tadderell alone at the Job Corps program, he'd begun developing a friendship with Colleen. Though nothing romantic had happened between them, Krista's jealousy consumed her. Using her knowledge of occult practices, Krista convinced Tadderell and their friend Shadallah that the universe was out of balance and required a human offering to restore order. The chosen victim would be Colleen. To any rational person, this would sound like the ravings of a disturbed mind. But to three teenagers already immersed in these beliefs, it became a justification for violence. On January 12th, Krista approached Colleen with a peace offering. She claimed to regret their previous conflicts and invited Colleen to join them for a friendly outing to the wooded area, where they could share marijuana and patch things up. Colleen, desperate to end the harassment she'd been enduring, agreed. But Krista had already armed herself with utility knives. As soon as the group was deep in the woods, away from any potential witnesses, she dropped her friendly facade. Accusing Colleen of trying to seduce Tadderell, she launched into a savage attack. What followed was a prolonged assault that lasted over 30 minutes. Krista attacked Colleen repeatedly, while Tadderell held her down and Shadallah stood watch. When Colleen begged for her life, promising to leave the program and never return, Krista only became more excited. She carved Asta, the 5-pointed star, into Colleen's chest, then picked up a large piece of asphalt and struck her head repeatedly until she was unrecognizable. Before leaving the scene, Krista selected a piece of Colleen's skull as a keepsake, believing, according to occult mythology, that this would trap the victim's soul forever. The three then calmly returned to their dormitory and resumed their normal routines as if nothing had happened. The confession, when it came, filled 46 pages of transcript. Krista recounted every detail with chilling composure, showing no remorse or guilt. She sat in the interrogation room, calmly stroking the 5-pointed star pendant around her neck, a symbol of the beliefs that had driven her to commit this act. The trial began in March 1996 and lasted only a few days. The evidence was overwhelming. The evidence found in Krista's jacket, her bragging confession to classmates, blood-stained clothing in her room, and her detailed confession to police. The jury deliberated for just a few hours before finding her guilty of first-degree murder. At 18 years old, Krista Pike became the youngest woman sentenced to death since America reinstated capital punishment in 1976. Tennessee still used the electric chair at that time, making her case even more historically significant. When the sentence was read, Krista broke down crying, but by then it was too late for remorse. Her accomplices received different sentences based on their level of involvement. Tadderell's ship, being only 17, received life with the possibility of parole. Shadallah Peterson, who cooperated with police, received probation after pleading guilty to accessory after the fact. But the story didn't end there. During her time on death row, Krista continued to make headlines. She attacked another inmate with a shoelace, trying to strangle her. She wrote letters expressing no remorse for her crime. She even tried to orchestrate a prison escape by convincing a man she'd been corresponding with to bribe a guard. The case also revealed Krista's tragic backstory. Born in West Virginia to an alcoholic mother and an abusive father, she'd suffered severe trauma from infancy. Her mother drank heavily during pregnancy, causing developmental damage to Krista's frontal lobe, the area of the brain responsible for impulse control and decision-making. She'd been assaulted multiple times as a teenager, with her mother refusing to press charges or seek help. This background information sparked a national debate about whether childhood trauma could explain, if not excuse, such crimes. Mental health experts argued that Krista's damaged brain and traumatic upbringing had created a perfect storm for violence. Others maintained that millions of people suffer trauma without becoming criminals. Today, nearly 30 years later, Krista Pike remains on Tennessee's death row, the only woman currently facing execution in the state. Her case has been appealed numerous times, with lawyers arguing everything from mental illness to ineffective counsel. Various delays have prevented the execution from being carried out, and Tennessee's governor has been reluctant to sign a new execution warrant. For Colleen's family, the long wait for justice has been agonizing. Her mother has repeatedly requested the return of evidence related to her daughter, which remains in police storage, but has been denied. In frustration and grief, she built a memorial garden in her backyard, the only place she can properly honor her daughter's memory. The case remains a study in contrasts. An 18-year-old with an ordinary appearance who committed extraordinary evil. A working-class student whose dreams were destroyed by jealousy and obsession. And a justice system still wrestling with questions about punishment, mental illness, and redemption. Krista Pike's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about how trauma shapes us. How toxic relationships can turn deadly. And how quickly normal teenage problems can escalate into unthinkable violence. It reminds us that dangerous behavior doesn't always announce itself with obvious warning signs. Sometimes it hides behind a young face and speaks the language of friendship right up until the moment it strikes. In the end, this case serves as both a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked mental illness and toxic relationships, and a testament to how one moment of violence can destroy multiple lives forever. Whether Krista will ever face execution remains unclear, but her place in criminal history is secure as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous individuals are the ones we least expect. Let's move to our fifth story. And this one begins with a teenage hacker who brought the world's most powerful intelligence agencies to their knees from his bedroom in England. What you're about to hear sounds like something out of a Hollywood thriller. But every keystroke, every breach, every moment of digital chaos actually happened. This is the story of Justin, a 15-year-old British teenager who went by the alias Default and managed to hack into the CIA director's personal emails, steal classified government documents, and embarrass the most powerful nation on Earth. But more than just a tale of cyber warfare, this is a cautionary story about how unchecked curiosity and youthful arrogance can spiral into international incident. West Midlands, England, an industrial heartland far removed from the gleaming towers of Silicon Valley or the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. This is where our story begins, in the modest home of a government contractor whose son would one day hold the digital keys to America's deepest secrets. Justin appeared to be an ordinary British teenager, but beneath the surface lay an insatiable curiosity and a natural gift for understanding how systems worked. And more importantly, how they could be broken. Justin's father worked for the government in a classified capacity, spending long stretches away from home on assignments he couldn't discuss. His mother tried her best to keep their household together, but with an absent father and a son who spent increasing amounts of time glued to his computer screen, family dynamics grew strained. What started as innocent gaming quickly evolved into something far more sophisticated and dangerous. By age 12, Justin had discovered that the same skills that let him cheat in Counter-Strike could be applied to much larger systems. He taught himself programming languages, studied network vulnerabilities, and began experimenting with basic hacking techniques. His online persona, Default, wasn't just a username. It represented his belief that most systems were poorly configured and needed to be reset to their foundational truth. The year 2008 marked a turning point in both Justin's life and the global hacking community. Anonymous, the notorious hacktivist collective, was reaching the height of its power, launching high-profile attacks against corporations and governments worldwide. For a young hacker like Justin, Anonymous represented the ultimate achievement. A group of digital warriors fighting perceived injustices from behind computer screens. Unable to gain entry into Anonymous's tightly controlled ranks, Justin found a home with Answer, a smaller but equally active hacking group that specialized in building and operating botnets. These networks of compromised computers could be used to launch devastating distributed denial-of-service attacks or harvest sensitive data from thousands of machines simultaneously. Under Ansher's guidance, Justin learned the art of digital warfare on an industrial scale. His first major hack came through pure curiosity. While exploring one of Ansher's botnet nodes, Justin discovered he'd gained access to a computer at the University of Windsor's medical school in Canada. What should have been a routine reconnaissance mission turned into something much more significant when he realized the compromised machine had administrative access to the university's financial systems. Scrolling through endless spreadsheets of student debt, Justin found himself staring at numbers that made his teenage mind reel. Hundreds of students owed tens of thousands of dollars each, with total outstanding debt approaching $9.4 million. At the bottom of the screen sat a simple button labeled Clear All Debts. For most people, the ethical implications would have been paralyzing. For Justin, it was an irresistible challenge. With a single click, he erased nearly $10 million in student debt. The university's backup systems had never been properly configured, meaning the debt disappeared permanently. Hundreds of students who had been struggling under crushing financial burdens suddenly found their accounts cleared to zero. While Justin later described feeling like a digital Robin Hood, the university faced a financial crisis that took years to resolve. This act of digital vigilantism convinced Justin that he had found his calling. No longer content with small-scale mischief, he began looking for targets that aligned with his developing sense of justice. When news broke about Denmark's laws permitting zoophilia, Justin and his fellow Answer members saw an opportunity to make a statement that would resonate around the world. Their attack on Denmark was coordinated and brutal. Government websites crashed under the weight of distributed denial-of-service attacks. Official domains were defaced with images exposing animal cruelty and messages condemning the country's policies. The assault was so effective that international media picked up the story, creating a global outcry that ultimately forced Denmark's parliament to ban the practices that had triggered the attack. But these victories were just preparation for Justin's ultimate target: the United States intelligence apparatus. Partnering with another teenage hacker known as Cracker, Justin set his sights on the most protected networks in the world. Their motivation wasn't financial gain or simple mischief. They genuinely believed they were fighting against government overreach and surveillance programs that violated citizens' privacy rights. Their first major success came when they targeted James, then Director of National Intelligence. Using publicly available information and social engineering techniques, Cracker managed to gain access to James's personal email account. From there, they discovered his home phone number and executed one of the most audacious pranks in hacking history. They redirected his incoming calls to a Palestinian rights organization, ensuring that every attempt to reach the intelligence chief resulted in political messaging he definitely didn't want to hear. Emboldened by this success, the teenage duo set their sights on an even bigger target: John, director of the CIA. Once again, John's own carelessness made the hack possible. His personal information was scattered across the internet, and password reset systems were laughably insecure by today's standards. Within hours, they had access to his private communications. What they found inside John's email account was a treasure trove of classified information. Background check documents, congressional briefings, internal CIA communications, and policy directives that revealed the inner workings of America's intelligence community. Rather than keep this information to themselves, Justin and Cracker decided to release it through WikiLeaks, creating an international incident that sent shockwaves through Washington. The leaked documents exposed details about 20,000 FBI agents and 9,000 Justice Department employees. They revealed classified Middle East policies, internal government communications, and surveillance programs that had never been publicly acknowledged. The breach was so comprehensive that federal agents and high-ranking officials were advised to take extraordinary security precautions, with some going into temporary hiding. For several weeks, 2 teenagers from England held the American intelligence community hostage. They conducted prank phone calls to the CIA director, leaked classified documents at will, and demonstrated that even the most protected government networks could be compromised by sufficiently motivated hackers. The psychological impact was perhaps even greater than the practical damage. If a couple of kids could penetrate these systems, what could nation-state actors accomplish? But Justin's downfall came not from sophisticated counter-hacking or international manhunts. It came from the most human weakness of all: the need to brag. During a late-night gaming session, fueled by alcohol and teenage bravado, Justin revealed his true identity to an online friend. What he thought would be dismissed as drunken boasting was instead reported directly to the FBI. The investigation that followed was swift and merciless. FBI cyber specialists used digital forensics techniques to trace Justin's online activities, correlate IP addresses, and build an airtight case against him. When agents finally raided his home in the Midlands, they found sophisticated encryption systems, multiple computers, and nearly 1,000 bitcoins that would later be worth over $90 million. Justin's arrest marked the end of one of the most audacious hacking campaigns in history. At just 15 years old, he had penetrated systems that were supposed to be impregnable, embarrassed the world's most powerful intelligence agencies, and sparked global debates about privacy, surveillance, and government accountability. His story became a case study in both the power of individual hackers and the vulnerability of even the most protected systems. The legal proceedings that followed were complicated by Justin's age and the international nature of his crimes. As a minor, he received a relatively lenient sentence of 5 years, along with a substantial fine. His partner Cracker faced similar charges in the UK. Both cases established important precedents for how juvenile cybercriminals should be prosecuted in an era where teenagers can wield more digital power than entire governments possessed just decades ago. Today, nearly a decade after his arrest, Justin's story continues to resonate throughout the cybersecurity community. His exploits are studied in computer science courses, analyzed by government security agencies, and cited in debates about how to balance individual privacy rights with national security concerns. The vulnerabilities he exposed led to significant improvements in government cybersecurity protocols. Though experts argue that determined attackers will always find new ways to exploit human and technical weaknesses. Perhaps most remarkably, the bitcoins seized during Justin's arrest have appreciated to a value that dwarfs the actual damage caused by his hacking activities. What began as a teenager's digital rebellion has become a reminder of how quickly fortunes can be made and lost in our interconnected world. Justin's case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, authority, and justice in the digital age? Was he a cyber terrorist who threatened national security? Or a digital whistleblower who exposed government overreach? Can someone barely old enough to drive be held fully responsible for actions that reverberate across international relations? And in a world where a single keystroke can potentially shift the balance of global power, how do we protect both individual freedoms and collective security? The story of Default serves as both cautionary tale and inspiration. A reminder that in our hyper-connected world, the most dangerous adversaries might not be foreign governments or criminal organizations, but curious teenagers with too much time, too much skill, and too little supervision. As we continue to build our digital infrastructure, we ignore these lessons at our own peril. Stay vigilant in the digital realm, where today's curious teenager might become tomorrow's most wanted cybercriminal. And remember, in a world where information is power, those who can access and manipulate that information wield influence far beyond their years or station. Thank you for watching Crime Ciphers. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay vigilant and informed at all times. Remember to prioritize your safety and your loved ones. Until next time, we'll return with another jaw-dropping true crime story. Stay safe